3 long years after the incredible cliffhanger ending of Season 1 of Severance, here we are with the premiere of Season 2. And even for me, I only had to wait like a month because I just caught up on this show, but the wait has been excruciating because of how things ended. How are they going to bring everything back for Season 2? And I think that Season 2 is off to a spectacular start with this episode. We got all of the cast members back into the hallways of Lumen, and we see that there is a change in the status quo. It's different now. Things are going to be changing going forward, but of course we have to end up back in those hallways because that's the whole premise of this show, right? So we stay with the innies in this episode, which I think preserves that sense of mystery about the outside world, and that's very important for a show like this that operates on mystery first and foremost. You want to preserve a sense that we're like learning new things. We get little nuggets of information here and there, but you have to maintain the mystery that drives this whole thing. That's a delicate balance to weigh when it comes to writing a show like this. And I think they did a great job here giving us information, but also withholding and saving a lot of information for later down the season. So we didn't get any look at the outside world, even though at the end of last season we got introduced to the Audis, but now we're back focused with this episode in the hallways of Lumen. We start off with an incredible opening sequence here, and running through the hallways of Lumen, just giving us that sense of the environment and how it's a maze-like atmosphere. And I think that this show really nails down a lot of important themes. It has a lot of things to say, but I want to focus in this episode on identity and corporate culture. So this almost seems like a science experiment to me, right? This concept of having a identity that is just for your work life and an identity outside of the workplace. And now these things are on a collision course because at the end of last season, we had them wake up, the innies woke up outside the real world. So we start off here with a scene of Mark running through the hallways. And of course, we know what he's doing. He's running to try to find his wife. I think that going to wellness makes a lot of sense for this character in this moment. And we get the sense that it's a maze. You know, we knew that all along. It's hard to navigate. They get lost. They need to draw maps if they want to go to other departments. And of course, this is all designed for the sake of manipulation. They don't want people of different departments talking to each other. That's why they separate them in this way. They don't have signs telling you which way to go to certain places, and it's all designed to keep them like rats in a maze. You know, it really is a science experiment at the end of the day. So I think that starting off the season this way really just establishes that. And it also is about the corporate culture thing because there's this sanitized look, the bright lights that are supposed to keep you like productive and happy. Like there's a reason why everything is the way that it is, but it's on the surface for the well-being of the people there. You know, you want to have this sense that you're awake and alert and that it's like a happy place. You know, you don't have dark colors or anything like that. And of course, it's actually sinister at the end of the day. Like there are mysterious, shady things going on in the background. So that's what I think the show does really well. And they really illustrate it in this first scene. And in the background, in this shot, I love the way this shot is framed because we see Milchek in the background wearing his suit. And it almost reminds us of the guy that took them to the break room last season, the guy that ended up dying. So you think of him when you see Milchek in the background, looming in the background. He's always watching. He's got this creepy, like overly happy demeanor when he talks to them, but we know it's only skin deep. And that's again about like the corporate culture where there's always something lingering under the surface and people don't really be honest with each other in that type of environment. And that's why this theme of identity, of separating these things in a literal sense, is more of like a metaphor for how we go to work day to day and we only show a certain part of our persona. So that there's a lot in this opening scene here. But you'll notice Milchek is different in this season because he's the boss now. So last season, he always had the jacket off because he's trying to be relatable to the innies, right? He almost wants to feel like they're the professionals and he's just there to support. Now he's got the suit on, which means he's over top of them now. Even though that's kind of always how he's been, now he wants to have that sense of superiority, and he's got his own identity complex in this episode, which we'll get to later. So just a stellar opening, and now we see the manipulation that Lumen's going to go with for this season, where now the innies are famous, and they got the word out. And Helly, of course, had that speech, which she lies about, interestingly, and we'll get back to that later. But I thought that this, to me, is ringing alarm bells. Like this, I don't know that this newspaper is real, right? We can't trust them as a reliable narrator. This could all just be for manipulation. So who knows what the actual truth of the matter is, but this just looks like a Photoshop picture to me. They took the workplace photo of all of them and just put it on top of a car with confetti. It just looks ridiculous, right? So I think that this is a fake newspaper, but they're going with this narrative because they did actually get some of the word out. So they can't just fire them and get rid of them. They want to try to appease them, make it feel like, oh, we're taking your thoughts into account, we're listening to you. When really they're just thinking about themselves and their public image, right? This is all about public relations, which is another thing in corporate culture where they want to say the thing that sounds the best, that goes to their personal interests the best, or the interests of the organization, but they're not going to say the 100% like raw truth. You know, they only couching it in this language that hides certain things and draws attention to certain things as they try to manipulate the outside world as well. So I think that this, again, it's all leading back to those themes. This actor is so good at just giving this demeanor of appearing like calm and collected, but you know under the surface, it just, you can feel the rage in him. Especially in this episode with his computer, he's replacing Miss Cobell from last season, and his computer still has her name on it. So he is dealing with his own identity crisis. Who is he now? And what is his new role here? They don't seem to care about him because they don't even put his name on the thing, which of course is just, again, corporate structure. Everybody's replaceable, right? Nobody at the end of the day is special when it comes to a big organization like that because they can just replace them. And even in this first scene here, we have 3 new people for Mark. And of course, I have a feeling Mark's outie wants in here because he wants to try to find his wife. You know, now that we have that secret revealed, that this company seems to have arranged her death and faked her death so that he would be motivated to work there. Like, they've been spying on him for longer. Like, we're going to get all this information, I'm sure, doled out as the seasons go on, but that's really what it seems like. And you just know, like, they say that your outie begged us to take you back. And I actually do believe that. It's unreliable narrators. But, of course, Mark has every reason to want to come back. And maybe he has some leverage over them. You know, maybe it's almost like blackmail. Like, I know you did this thing. I won't say anything if you let me come back, or something like that. So I'm really curious to find out more about that dynamic. And now we got this child character here, which just kind of even further illustrates that sense that there's like the surface level, that everything's clean and everything's nice and everything's great, but under the surface there's something sinister about it, because the fact that there's a child here, you know, whether she's severed or not, you know, that there are laws against child labor for a reason. And I think that there's manipulation at play there. She's replacing Mr. Milchek in this role. You know, he was playing the game. He didn't have the suit jacket on. Notice she doesn't have the suit jacket on. She's the supervisor now. But Mr. Milchek ended up in multiple physical altercations with Dylan last season, and they don't want the innies to feel like they can do that. So they have this manipulation going on where they're putting this child in this position because they don't want the innies to gang up on her and do physical violence, because it just feels wrong when it's a child, right? So it's a different thing. But they don't have her well-being in mind either, because she should be in school doing things that children do, right? So it just feels wrong. Yeah, we get this really great scene here where you can tell Mark had these two identities kind of collide last season, And now you can see the fake persona that he has to put on in this corporate landscape now. And the same way Milchek has this fake persona and all of the non-Severed employees do, now he does. That was one of the things behind Severance, was that the people inside could be almost more genuine to their real selves because they don't have the baggage of their past life experience. They just exist in this world, and they were kind of created by their environment in the science experiment of sorts. So now he has almost the real world dilemma of, I need to keep certain information to myself, and I'm going to present myself in a certain way. So now Mark's main goal in this first part is he wants his old team back, and it almost like was my instinct that like, shouldn't he be trying to get his wife or information about her? But he wants his team back because they view the team not being there, the team on the outside world, as killing the innie, because a lot of people's identity is tied into their past experience, their memories, and I think that severing that from the outside world creates those two people in one person. And we see there's some crossover, right, with like what Irving was painting outside. Like, some information does get through, and they were saying, you know, Mark's innie has some of that sadness from the outside world, even though he doesn't know why. He carries that with him. So there is some crossover, but not a ton. But they view it as death, right? So he wants his team back so that they can get unkilled. And he wants them back for selfish reasons as well, because he wants their help to find out what's going on. I love this opening. He plants the note to try to get rid of the team, but he's not thinking very clearly, because obviously they know his handwriting, right? So whether that was on purpose on his part, I tend to think it was just an oversight. So here we got this creepy looking painting. I love that they created this mythology, this kind of like cult-like devotion to their founder. And that is kind of what they give to the innies as their main motivation. You know, all of these corporations have a mission statement and they have core principles in the way that they do here, but it's kind of exaggerating that to the point where it is like religious, and that's how they get their purpose and direction in their life, because of course, you know, they are kind of creating new lives when they sever people. So they have these paintings that are designed to manipulate them, and here it's like, oh, isn't he so great? You know, they could have killed them forever, but he's going to give them the forgiveness that they're looking for to try to bring them back. So this is the tone setting in front of the elevator that sets the tone for what's about to happen. So now everybody's back in. They're talking about what just happened at the end of last season. And even though months have passed in the real world, in the show, it does feel like picking up where we left off, because in the perspective of the innies, they did, right? So we have Irving dealing with his kind of rejection from Bert, right? Seeing that Bert is married. We got Helly dealing with finding out that she is the villain, and she copes with that in an interesting way here. And we have Dylan, who has no perception of what was going on in the outside world. He just knows that he was tackled by Mr. Milchek. So they notice that there's no cameras now, which we know that that's just a psychological thing. The cameras were there to keep them in line, because obviously they can hide cameras. Cameras can be really tiny in ways you can't see or perceive, and microphones can be placed in a way that they wouldn't know that they're there. But they were purposefully made so that they could be visible, so that they would have this feeling that they're being watched. They wanted that. But now we have to present that we're listening to them and that we care about their feelings, so we're going to hide the cameras a little better. I'm sure the cameras are still there, because at this point it would be stupid of them not to monitor these people that have a rebellious side to them, right? So I'm sure that the cameras are still there, but it is all just about appearances. So now we go down to this break room, and I always loved that this like kind of torture chamber was called the break room, because that's usually where we would get some coffee and drinks, and you would be able to like be yourself. Like in the real world, when you go to the break room, you can kind of just talk to other people and have some sense of normalcy. And here it's turned on its head, and that is where they're punished. So now they're like, oh, we're not going to punish you anymore, and here's this happy place where you can just rest and relax, and we're going to show you this very manipulative video. and I just love it. Keanu Reeves. Like, I was really happy to see this video in the claymation style. And this is kind of like, again, about the corporate culture thing. It's just very patronizing and manipulative how this is shot. Treating them like children, showing them a children's cartoon, and then showing their lives. It is reinforcing that they're being watched at all times as well, because they show actual clips of audio from their real lives in there, so they just know they're being watched even though they took the cameras away, right? So they're presenting this new mythology that these characters had a positive impact and that they're the rebellious ones that ended up changing the organization for the better. So this might have been my favorite part of the episode. Just very creative how they shot everything. Now they got the new incentives, like they can walk the hallways and stuff, because that's what they wanted to do last season. So it's all just manipulation. And they throw in the kiss between Helly and Mark, which is clearly supposed to be private, but they throw that in there to kind of put them at odds with the other two, right? That there is this connection there. So this is a really funny, clever scene, and the humor in this episode was really good as well, maintaining the tone from past seasons. And they're supposedly getting this option to leave, right? So here's where they actually talk to each other and tell each other what happened. But of course, we know that they're almost certainly being listened to. We have Helly here lying that she is in fact a relative of the CEO, I believe granddaughter, if I'm not mistaken, but she is kind of the villain and she's ashamed of that part of herself. So we have this schism in identity, and she is motivated to stay on the inside because she hates her outside self, to the point that she wanted to end her life, last season with the elevator scene, of course. And now we have the situation where she's lying to everybody else. She doesn't want to admit that she's this terrible person on the outside world. And it's almost like the schism that forms in a lot of ourselves. Like, everybody has secrets that they want to keep to themselves, that they don't want to share and let other people in on. So that's definitely going to have consequences later on. I'm sure the truth will get out eventually, and how people react to that information is going to be key here, because everybody else tells the truth about what really happened. Mark tells, that his wife is still alive. And now Irving doesn't want to tell the truth of what happened to him, but it's for a different reason. It's because that is a very sorrowful memory to him, and he wants to leave so that he doesn't have to deal with that anymore. And he talks about it like he is dying when he's at that stairwell having that conversation with Dylan. He's talking about it as if, I want the pain to end. This is the type of thing that people say before they, end their lives, unfortunately. So that's how he viewed it. And Dylan's like trying to talk him out of it. So that was a really beautiful scene as well. And here we have Helly and Mark kind of navigating this new thing where they kind of just started like a romantic connection, and then Mark finds out that he is married and that his wife is still alive down here. These scenes back to back, I think, are really, really meaningful scenes, and they have this hug that goes on for too long, but I think they're using that to try to keep their voices from being heard, right? So they're trying to talk for real. There are secrets left to be revealed here in Lumen. So Dylan goes to visit Mr. Milchek. Mr. Milchek is dealing with the identity crisis that we showed before, and then he opens up a secret room in the wall, and he goes down this hallway and shows a design for a visitation suite, because Dylan last season found out he had a family and he wants to go out and see them. And now he's using this as an opportunity for manipulation. The real goal of this is not to show Dylan what he wants. It's really to drive a wedge between Dylan and the rest, because they want to have them together, but they want to give them incentives to not rebel again. So Dylan is basically being threatened, like, if you don't do what we tell you and cooperate with us, you'll never get to see your family again. And that's really what the point of this scene is. It's not like, oh, here, we're listening to you and we care about you, we're going to give you this. But, oh, you have to keep it a secret because the rest of the group doesn't have families. And it's definitely a manipulation tactic to drive a wedge between everybody. And that's the main goal of the corporation this season. So we end with everybody sitting down at the office again, getting back to work, dealing with these data numbers, which we still have no idea what they're actually doing. But yeah, just a great episode. And I really love how we're setting up the characters' journeys this season, and the manipulation of this company never ends. And I think it's going to be a great, thrilling season. We're going to learn more information. There's going to be new mysteries unlocked. We're going to learn some things. We're going to learn bigger mysteries. That's just how these shows go. And I think a lot of people are going to do the thing where like, oh, they don't give us enough answers. But you don't want all the answers because then the show would be over, right? So I think the characters first and foremost is the most important thing. And that's what this episode does the best. Set up the innies, give them all reasons to come back and work together again. I'm really excited to see how the show goes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you have any theories about what's going to happen next, I would love to hear it. But with that, it's been your boy Shuggy, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.